and says he's known for a long time that Baek Dogyeong had a brother but had heard that he died, since they even heard about what happened at the funeral. Jang says his twin brother was a member of their special forces and his skills were top-notch. The elder one was trained by the Yakuza and later became a gang member in Seoul, while the younger one became a soldier in the special forces. A pair of twins who led completely different lives but had one thing in common, which was their faces. Wang asks what he means, so Jang asks what if the Baek Dogyeong of Tison wasn't him at all and was a completely different person in reality. Hearing this, Wang flashes back to his fight against him and asks if Baek Dogyeong from Tison is Yisu in reality, which Jang says could be the case, hearing which Taehyung incredulously wonders what he's getting at. Wang asks why whether or not that person really is Baek Dogyeong matters to them, so Jang in turn asks if he thinks there are people who care, and slides a photo to him, saying they'll shake up Tison and make it an even bigger mountain. Meanwhile, Zealand takes off her coat, ignoring Cha's protests, and telling Yisu that he can do whatever he wants and that she'll even become her lapdog if he wins, but they'll be the one that leashes Tison's necks if she wins. Cha worryingly asks what she'll do if she gets injured, but Yisu tells her to not worry, throwing his dagger on the ground and says he'll go easy on her. Zealand rushes at him, saying she'll maybe let him live if he gives up an arm. As she swings her dagger at him, she asks if he thinks he can really win against Wang Hao and the Black Triad. As he keeps dodging, he notes her continuous wide attacks and changing of trajectory after swinging, noting that it's the same pattern as him before, saying he just needs to do it right. Zealand rushes forward and says she's asking if they're all ready before Yisu hits her square on the jaw and stops just inches away from another one, asking why she stepped away from the Black Dragon Triad for Cha Yu. She says ever since she stepped inside Seoul, her single objective has been to protect Boss Cha, so she's staying faithful to that order, and if the people over at the Black Dragon Triad are trying to harm her, they're the ones betraying their orders. She takes her arm back and swings her dagger at him, once again asking if they're ready to face against the Triad. He knocks the dagger away, saying it's too much for one person while dodging her oncoming attacks. But to do that, he's straightened and sharpened a ruined blade which has started to show its colors. The blades known as One Crane and Chungwon. He grabs her leg and slams her down on the ground, saying it doesn't matter who's behind them because they are TAESAN. At Incheon, a secretary thanks President Lee and Mr. Chunho for being here and takes them inside, apologizing that she can't say anything here in fear of an information leak, and asks them to go to the 6th floor, which is under construction, so they'll have to take the stairs and would prefer not to use the elevator. As she opens a door with her fingerprint, Lee wonders if the person behind the door really is him, which turns out to be true as they meet the real Baek Dogyeong lying on a bed. Chunho confusingly says Baek Dogyeong is back in Seoul, so Lee replies that is his twin brother, Baek Yisu, and this is the real one. Chunho asks about the funeral, asking if the person who died was Baek Dogyeong, but she says he did not die and is still alive, so he apologizes for his rudeness. She explains that Baek Dogyeong also operated under the Japanese name of Oyama Rugasaki, and that there were talks on if the Oyama Gumi should be allowed in Seoul, which is why Yisu had to take the mantle of Dogyeong. But if they find out about this, they'll take the setup bait by using their name. In the Tokyo Hotel Roppongi, a man hurries toward a pair of policemen, saying there were some screams from the top suite, and when he tried to go in, he was blocked by some men with a knife. One of them quickly understands the situation and asks which way it is, while the other asks him to calm down and show us the guest details, so the man hands him a file, saying they looked like Yakuzas, to which the policeman asks how crazy they must be to be in the middle of Roppongi, while the other admits it'd be easier if they were told about the guests first. They tell the manager to head down before one of them rushes into the room, warning everyone present to not move and to put down their weapons. One of the two guys standing inside arrogantly take out their knives and start walking toward him as his colleague addresses him as Matsuda and tells him to stop, saying they're Oyama, but Matsuda angrily fires into the ceiling, warning the two to stop walking as his colleague asks if he knows what he just did. A bloodied man named Oyama Shogo in a robe enters, holding a katana and asking if that was a gunshot, before slowly approaching Matsuda, who readies his gun, but his colleague quickly puts it down and says they received a report and were unaware that Oyama was residing here. Hearing this, Shogo says he won't make much of it and tells them to come inside since they received an official report. He sits down in front of bloodied corpses littering the room and says they were some third-rate, sullying the name before explaining that he'd talked about this with the higher-ups but didn't think about the other people living here, and apologizes, saying he got too comfortable even it is owned by them. Panicking, Matsuda asks why he's having a laugh, emphasizing that he killed people in a hotel. Shogo becomes silent for a moment before confirming that his name was Matsuda and ignoring his colleague's explanations of him being a newbie. He tells Matsuda that this is a hotel, which is exactly why he kills people here, since doing it in his home gets too dirty, and asks if Matsuda likes cutting people up in his home before walking away to answer a call, leaving a bloodied handprint on Matsuda's uniform. He picks up the phone and asks about Ryugasaki before widening his eyes in surprise, asking what happened to Baek Dogyeong. As they're walking back, Lee asks Chunho if the Oyama Gumi is that great of an organization, so he explains that they're a large construction business on the outside and the most powerful Japanese Yakuza organization in reality. And the affiliate Korean organization grown with Oyama's support is Baek Dogyeong's Taesun, so if it's revealed that Taesun's boss is Baek Yisu instead of Dogyeong, Oyama Gumi won't sit still as well. Shogo gets out of his car and walks forward as Lee bows, introducing himself as the chairman of Ilhak, the current affiliate of Taesun and the one who'll be greeting them in the absence of Baek Dogyeong. But Shogo nonchalantly walks past him, asking what he's saying and how a person like him is the chairman, telling them to get Baek Dogyeong to come out. Seeing this, Chunho angrily comments on how rude they are even if they're Oyama and when they hold the position of chairman at the organization. But Lee grabs the handle of a suitcase Shogo's man was carrying, stopping them and asking how a weak organization like them could ever compare to the great Oyama Gumi, and even more so, because of that, they've come to greet them so poorly, and that they'll be evade. Shogo says it's not befitting for a chairman to have such a flexible neck, hearing which Lee inwardly says he'll give all of it if it's only his neck, but Shogo goes on, saying the old man behind him doesn't seem to know proper respect and instructs one of his lackeys to teach it to him, so he starts cackling and goes forward with his axe, starting to attack Chunho, who barely manages to dodge but still gets grazed before Yisu slams his head into his car, telling him to stop flapping about before slamming him through a window and menacingly approaching Shogo, saying this isn't Oyama's land and is his Taesan, asking if he understands that. The guard advises Yisu to avoid Shogo since he's too dangerous, and he answers that he's not going to have a different confrontation for now. But Shogo arrived to inquire about Baek Dogyeong's health, which means that someone leaked information related to Taesan and Dogyeong. He remarks that it's probably Chief Jang, planning to shake them through the Oyama Gumi, and must have confirmed his suspicions of him being Yisu, and not Dogyeong, after seeing Shin at the warehouse, and might have given his identity to the Oyama. But there are too many variables for him to come out rashly, since it'll be very dangerous if his identity is exposed, which is why he should avoid creating so many variables. As Yisu smashes the man's head through the car window and menacingly approaches Shogo, who addresses him as Baek Dogyeong, but Yisu corrects him, saying it's Yama Ryugasaki, and asks President Lee to take care of Chunho since it seems like his brother couldn't wait to see him. Looking at him in amazement, Shogo inwardly remarks that it's Dogyeong, from his voice to the tattoos on his body, but asks himself why he's suspicious of him. He asks if that nerd is Yisu's chairman, commenting that's a bit disconcerting, even if he's a Josian bastard who got kicked out, and asks how an Oyama could work under someone else. Yisu annoyingly says that's not it and asks if he's going to keep pissing him off. He straightens his tie, saying staying in Japan just felt really awkward, so he left, and asks how he could stay when his elder brother was so powerlessly watching him. Shogo says he's the same as before, endlessly thoughtless and imprudent. Even when there are a lot of people watching right now, he can't be ignorant of the Oyama clan. Suddenly, one of his lackeys rushes forward, aiming a dagger at Yisu's throat, who remembers his name, Ishizuka Kaido, and says he saw him in the documents which said he was the assassin of the Oyama Shogo, and it's his first time fighting Dogyeong. He grabs his wrist, asking if he still isn't way higher in the hierarchy than him, and says he hasn't got any manners for meeting people before Kaido tries kicking him, seeing which Yisu notes that it doesn't matter if he's Dogyeong, meaning that they're still suspicious of him, as Shogo comments that he might have gotten mad because he was bad-mouthing him. Yisu says he can't take his dagger out if that's the case, and should hide his cards before Shin swoops in and effortlessly disarms Kaido, asking if he's a newbie. Impressed, Shogo inwardly remarks he didn't know people like that were in Korea as well, while Yasha steps forward to face the guy who Yisu had slammed into his car. Kaido breaks his arm to spin and slash at Shen with his knife, who manages to dodge but gets grazed on the cheek, remarking that he's one crazy guy. Kaido pops his arm back in, seeing which Shen asks if that doesn't hurt him at all before Shogo puts an end to it, saying he can stop now and telling Yisu